event is mostly we speak English, because then some of the important things I will repeat in Chinese. If you need Chinese clarification, you can put in the chat so we can repeat, make sure nothing important is missing. 我讲一下我们这次的主要的这个讲的都用英文讲因为大部分的来宾都是主要讲英文，但是你需要一些重要的内容需要我重复一下我会有些方面的东西我会自动的用中文重复一下，你也可以放在你的 chat 你的 request 说刚才的内容希望用中文重复一下，这个没问题。我们在这个嘉宾讲完以后，我们最后会留下来解答一些听众的一些问题，这个都没问题。Okay, so let's start it today. Welcome all the parents and all the friends. My name is Bing Fen. Chinese name is Fen Bing. I'm an autism parent and autism advocate in the New York State here. Today is the World Autism Day. We all come here, try to celebrate the day, but most likely as a parent, we try to make it a rally because we have so many things we need to do. In the last 20 years, maybe more, we have made lots of progress, but it's really not enough. As a parent, so we're always thinking about what we can do, what we can do more. Okay, so today is our coming here is as Chinese American, as a parent with the children on the autism spectrum, we will think about what we can do more, okay. Today event is organized by AFI. AFI is also formally called the Chinese Coffee Club as before. And this is a non-profit organization from New York. We also collaborate with other agency and organization across America, which is include in New York State. We have Charles Wang Medical Center, Wang Jialian 医疗中心. We have Chinese American Planning Council, CPC 华策会. We have AFDN 传新家长协会. We have PCR 纽约亲子协会. From Georgia, we have True Love 家长协会. From Missouri, we have 小亚亚自闭症. From Canada, we have Alliance Go. We try to unite all the parents group and also agency who supporting the Chinese community come here together and to think about what we can do more for our children with the autism on the autism spectrum. So today is our honor. We invite 3 distinguished Chinese Americans here. Each of them contributed to the autism in the great deal. We are very thankful for your service, for your leadership, and we are particularly happy to have you here. First, our guest is U.S. Congresswoman Grace Meng here. Grace, welcome. Thank you very much here. Second guest is Yuh-Line Niou, 牛艺玲女士，是我们 New York State Assembly member. The last one is Dr. Andy Shih, 中名字是石谨魁，是Autism Speaks the Chief Office of Science. It is my great honor first of introducing Grace Meng. As a resident of Queens, I'm living in Forest Hill and now in Bayside. It is our honor that we supporting you when you first starting your election here, and we do find out you are really our leader for our community, for our city, for the Chinese immigrant, also for the special needs children family here. And even in the afternoon, I saw you post that your testimony on the airport noisy for the Queens because I live there almost every day, so I know how it's painful. I appreciate you speak out for us, and you are the true leader for everything, especially for the pandemic. You're leading every crisis. You all step on the front of them, fighting for us. On the February 18, especially you introducing the bill called Autism Family Caregiver Act, which is directly provide the training to the families and the caregiver with autism, also with development needs, family caregivers. So please, let's welcome Congresswoman Grace Meng speak to us.
Thank you so much, Meng, for the kind introduction. And it's such an honor to be here with all of you today. To Angeline, to Dr. Shih, it's an honor to be here in your presence, and thank you for your work. A special shout out to my friend and colleague, Assemblywoman Yuh-Line Niou. She's no stranger to the families on this call today, and you all know how hard she works for our community. But I want to give a special shout out because in case you all don't know, this is really one of the busiest times right now in the state legislature. They're working around the clock 24/7. Yuh-Line has actually taken the lead to hopefully very soon deliver an unprecedented amount of resources for our AAPI community and organizations. And all of us are incredibly grateful for her leadership. I apologize, I'm outside right now, but hopefully it stays relatively quiet. But I wanted to thank the Alliance for Impact for inviting me to speak this evening and for your support for our Autism Family Caregivers Act. I want to recognize Autism Speaks for their incredible help with the legislation, as well as Charles B. Wang Center, a center that has some locations located right within the heart of my district, and was one of the first sites in the entire country to pilot this caregiver skills training program, and whose work inspired the introduction of our legislation. And finally, and most importantly, I want to thank all the parents and the families who are joining this call today. Know that I hear you, and I am working tirelessly to ensure that you have the support and more support that you need to truly care for your children who may just need help along the way to finding success. Every day, I don't have to tell you, our caregivers give endlessly of their own time and energy to help our loved ones live more complete lives. And with families spending more time at home during the COVID pandemic, and as disruptions to in-person learning continue, access to tools and assistance for children with developmental disabilities is essential to support their healthy development. I introduced the bill to address this disparity in access to services for families of young kids with autism or other developmental disabilities or delays by providing an evidence-based way to support a healthy development while being able to empower our family caregivers with knowledge and skills. As you know, caregiver skills training is not something new. It's an evidence-based approach currently operating at sites in, I think, 27 countries and in 3 states, serving mostly immigrant and non-English speaking communities, as demonstrated by the program at Charles B. Wang. Caregiver skills training helps to address the challenges faced by families with children with autism who struggle with access to adequate health services and social engagement opportunities. By increasing access to caregiver skills training across the whole country, we can improve the lives of both children with autism and their caregivers. The bill establishes a 5-year pilot program at the Department of Health and Human Services to award grants to nonprofits, community health centers, or hospital systems to provide caregiver skills training to family caregivers of children with autism and other developmental disabilities or delays. This pilot program will bring together parents, healthcare providers, educators, social workers, and more in collaboration to support our children's learning and development, including communication skills, social engagement, and everyday living skills. The bill also establishes a caregiver skills training national technical assistance and evaluation center to assist in the implementation of the caregiver skills training programs at various sites to evaluate the effectiveness of such programs in improving the lives of children with autism and their family caregivers, and to establish best practices. With the establishment of the center, Congress can work to expand and extend the program after the pilot is completed. As the prevalence of autism amongst children has increased by 24%, it's also really important to support additional funding for autism research and services. As a member of our House Appropriations Committee, which is responsible for funding the federal government's activities, in last year's bill, I helped secure $50 million for the Autism and Development Disorders Monitoring Network. This network, as you probably know, collects data on children with autism and other disabilities or delays to help develop public health strategies and understand autism in children as young as 4 to as old as 16 years of age. So together in Congress, I'm confident with the support and collaboration with all of you, with our Assemblywoman, we will pass this legislation and help improve the lives of caregivers across the country. But I'm really grateful to the great work that you all do, grateful for your compassion and for your super helpful guidance and support of our legislation. Thanks again for including me in tonight's event, and stay healthy and safe to all of you.
Thank you, Griezmann. Thank you. The one of the major purpose here is we need to call all the Chinese parents across the country to supporting the bill. We have to contact each of them representative, and we need to make this one as the as passing of there. Okay, so I know Griezmann, you have your other agenda on handy. So if you want to leave, we'll pray, or you can stay depending your own time here. Okay, so let's thank you, Griezmann, our congressman. Thank you for leadership. Thank you for care for our family with special needs. We really appreciate. Thank you very much. So this is one thing is that even Congresswoman introducing the bill, we still depending it to get approved by the Congress. That means we need as much as congressman or congresswoman in your district to supporting this bill. Otherwise, it cannot be passing. Okay, and this is what we try to do. The first one we do is we show you how you can support it. Okay, now this bill is about to set up national training centers. I think it's 25. It's a 25 training center in 15 states, right? So that's the target here. Its training is training the parents, also the caregivers, how to take care your children with development needs, including autism. Okay, so this is really what, as a parents, we were doing. We were learning almost every day, because this is a tough task for ourselves. It's not just one time; it's a lifetime learning process. We really need those evidence-based, scientifically backed up all the knowledge and the technique to help us. So this is a very great bill. This is directly impact our own life. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to tell you how you can support this one. Without your support, this bill just stay there, cannot be passing by the Congress, because we still need more. I remember when it started, we only have like 20 co-sign from the other Congress, so we still have lots of work to do here. Okay, let me quickly share my screen here. Okay. So when you go to, I'm going to send you a link. This link is, okay. So this is what I want to say you do, okay, in Chinese again. I'm going to repeat the answer in Chinese again. 这个提案，这个国会提案现在只是提案，也就是说有孟昭文议员，孟昭文是民主党的议员，包括联合的2名共和党的议员一起提出来，所以这是一个跨党派的这个法案。这个提案提出来以后要送交国会，大家一起投票。我们现在我们上次看到的情况是，现在一共有20位其他的议员一起支持这个法案，就是说他们肯定会投票这个法案。可是你知道我们有几百个议员，所以这个还远远还不够，还不知道我们怎么办呢？我们就可以去动员你自己选区的议员、国会议员，让他们来支持这个提案。这个做法呢很简单，Autism Speaks 他已经做好一个网站，我把这个网址放在 chat 里头，你点一下你就知道，直接就到这个网站去。OK。Everyone， 你点一下以后，就自动到了这个网站。OK， 这个网站你只要把你的姓名、地址、电子邮件、电话填进去以后，这个网站自动会找到你自己选区的国会议员，自动把已经打好文字的信要求他们支持这个叫做 Autism Family Caregiver Act HR 6783 Bill 这个情况，自动要求他们去支持。OK， 这是他们自动会把你选区的国会议员的名字列出来。像我的话就是 Grace Meng。OK， 那么我知道他已经是支持这一方面。OK， 这是第一步。你可以用自己的名字，你用你家庭的所有成员的名字，用你所有的知道的好朋友的名字，动员他们去参加这个东西。你可以动员你所有的同事，你可以去动员你所有知道的有自闭症孩子或者有发育障碍孩子的家长，你可以动员你们学校的老师。OK， 把这个信息呢传播出去，让他们一起来签名。OK， 这个签名呢，他们会把这个请愿的书呢，自动会送到他们的各个的这个电子邮件当中去 ，right? So this is the tools Autism Speaks already set up. It's very easily. If you click the link, it will go into this website. You just need to input basic information, your title, that means Mr. or Mrs. or Mrs. there, your first name, your last name, your address, your email address, maybe your phone number. Okay, then it will automatically looking for the congresswoman or man in your district. Okay, it will send a letter. The letter, inside letter, you can see the example here. It asks the congressman to support this bill. Okay, so this is the first one. Second one is what you can do. What you can do is once you know your congressman's name, you also it's a good way to call their office. Because email just a number. Okay, they send they receive thousands of email every day, but the number they have to record every calls to the Congress. You call them, tell your own story, tell your children's story, tell that how important this bill will help your family. Okay, then you ask the Congress co-sign this bill. OK， 共同签署或者支持 ，right？ 这是第二个你可以做，这个要比第一个更好，因为你每次打电话他们都会记录，然后呢，你可以讲你自己的故事，可以讲自己的重要性，这是一个非常好的一个东西，对吧？这是一个。那么第三个呢，还有一个呢是在美国的国会两院，参议院跟众议院。他们有一个叫 Autism Caucus， 叫自闭症委员会。这个委员会是 参议院、众议院当中的议员、众议员或者参议员，他们自愿加入这个团体，表示他们对自闭症的支持。现在目前这个委员会一共有141个委员 ，140个委员。那么你可以在这个网站的连接上查一下，看看你的议员 ，OK 是不是在这个名称当中去 ？OK， 我看一下这个。So this is a link, OK。来，你看看你的议员是不是在这个名单上去？如果在的话，对他们表示感谢；如果不在的话，要求他们能够参加这个委员会 ，OK。因为这个委员会，大家会把所有的跨党派的两党的议员都团结起来，共同支持自闭症的一些事业。OK， 那么这也是你可以做的。你要求你们的议员参加这个委员会，将来呢，他们更有机会来支持有关自闭症的所有的这些方面的东西，对吧 ？So the third one you can do is you can check in if your congressman or your senator in your district whether they are belong to this called Autism Congressional Autism Caucus. So this is Autism Caucus is a group of the members from the congressmen, also the senators. Together, they show that they are supporting supporting everything related to supporting the autism and the family. Okay, if your congressman is already in this list, you can thank them for their help. If they're not, you can ask them to join this caucus. So in the future, you can have more chance to supporting us. Okay, so that's the three things you can do. You can do right now, you can do later. We will send you this information again. So help you and help us, right? Everybody, because this is very important. Even you're not American citizen, you're not a vote, doesn't matter because your children here, okay? Your children need the service. So more people we can engage in, more people, more have a chance we can pass this bill. This bill is only one of them. It's still far, far away from we really need it. Okay, but this is a very good study. Every year we push the Congress, we push the senator to passing the bills. Just like Grace mentioned before, last year she was able to secure the fund from HCBS. Now, if you don't know what's HCBS, you probably know that will know that when your children over 18 years old after school, then lots of service, the school will no longer provide. It's coming to HCBS, home and the community-based service, okay? So that is depending how much money the Congress and the Senator will allocate for that one. So that's how important it is, right? So this is continually, we're going to do it. We're going to keep fighting it. And we need everybody's help. You can do yourself. You can do for your family member. You can ask all your friends, all your teachers, all your students, other students' family together. Okay, let's help to pass this bill because this bill is very important. In later, we were talking with Andy Shih about some detail about this. What is the caregiver training it's doing, okay? And some of the information already online, we can learn about this, okay? So yeah, so that's, so this is the first one, our guest here. And let me introducing our second guest speaker, Yuh-Line Niou. I very appreciate she coming here because I know as assembly member right now is the busiest time because the New York State needed passing the budget. And I just talked to her, said, they still not agree, so have to be voted on next one. And I remember last year, you post a picture, you stay overnight just debating already, fighting, debating all the one. Okay, so I really appreciate you coming today. On your very, very busy schedule, and let me introducing you to all our parents here. Yuh-Line Niou, in Chinese name is Yuh-Line. It is New York City's it's District 65. District 5 is the assembly member, which is in Chinese, maybe we can call the 纽约州众议员. She has been elected for 3 terms, right? For 3 terms already, and she's really fighter. She's really fighter for the working family, immigrant. I remember last time you joined the strike for the taxi drivers, right?
Yes.
Taxi drivers.
Hunger strike for 15 days.
Yeah. I heard some good news, right? They have some deal.
We won.
Right?
Yeah, we made a deal.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I quite understand, but but I know you're fighting all this one, on the front line. Just like the Grace said, you also try to passing the API bill, right? The fund for the API community here, and but it's for us is most important. Maybe for us is she herself is on the autism spectrum herself. Okay, so it is a great honor. We have you, and also especially after we realize you are on the spectrum yourself. Okay, I know that somebody mentioned that they only have 3 openly autistic legislator in the U.S. there, and you're one of them. So I think our parents, it will be very interesting to hear your story and your perspective, and everything as you do this one here. So I just wondering, first question is, how do you know you're on the autism spectrum? When and how do you find out yourself?
Sorry, I just want to interrupt one thing. First of all, thank you for all of you. But Bing, can you unshare your screen so that everybody can see all of your face? See Yuh-Line, see all your friends chat. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, I want to say thank you to all of you for being here today. I also want to say thank you to Mr. Feng and also to Andy for being here. And more than anything, I want to thank all of the parents for being here. 我很感谢大家邀请我今天可以跟大家讲一讲。我很感动的是看到那么多父母亲为了他们的孩子。可以就是上网啊，就是跟别的父母亲一起聊啊，然后就是比较懂我们现在每一个人那个有一些不一样的话题，可以就是大家一起合作嘛，那就是很高兴可以就是跟大家今天就是解释一些我自己长大的一些就是经过的事情啊，还有跟大家就是聊一聊我们自己我们现在我们亚裔大部分亚裔在美国有一些特别的困难。So I wanted to kind of really be able to talk a little bit about my own experience, maybe a little bit of perspective from my own parents' experience, and then also a little bit about the experience of being Asian American, and then also being on the autism spectrum, and especially because we have a very large cultural difference in some aspects, so sometimes it can lead to being undiagnosed. So I do want to kind of put that out there. My name is Yuh-Line Niou. I actually represent Lower Manhattan in New York in our state assembly, and I am so glad to be here. I'm just so touched that so many parents are here today. I mean, I'm looking at the attendance list and it's like 280 parents in here, and I think that that's really, really, really amazing. And I'm so sorry that I know that most people, if they need me to speak Chinese, I can do a little bit, but I think that because of the way that our topic is, there's a lot of terminologies, I think that probably are better translated by Mr. Feng. And I also think that, I think that because I want to be a little bit more fluid, I'm just going to go ahead and speak in English. 我知道大家大概需要我讲一些中文，可是我知道我们那个讲政治的事情啊，或者是讲那个医疗的事情啊什么的，我其实我的单词有一些不太懂，所以我就跟冯先生就是求求你帮帮我啦啊，然后跟大家就是帮我们翻译一下。我其实讲政治的事情，我们知道我们翻译有时候其实我们纽约市的翻译有时候很不一样，所以就是跟大家就是先说个谢谢，然后就是一个对不起，因为我其实我中文讲得很顺利，可是就是有一些翻译的事情还是冯先生讲得比较好啊，所以I wanted to also just say that, for anybody who wants to reach out to our office or reach out to me at any time, I'm going to leave my email and my phone number into the chat later on. So just so if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask me. And I know that folks here are from across the nation, actually, right? Mr. Feng, is it true? Everybody?
Yeah. We also have from China, Canada as well. So it is, but we have lots of everywhere, basically.
Okay. And I heard that there's also like YouTube streaming, and there's a lot of things that are going on right now. So there's probably a lot more people than just even the 300 participants we have tonight. I do want to say that, when I was diagnosed, I was actually diagnosed as an adult. And so this is very different, I think, for a lot of folks, but I think that a lot of times when the signs were all there, I think that when I was growing up, the signs were all there, but I was never diagnosed until I was a young adult. I was about 20 years old, 21 years old when I was diagnosed as a young adult. But I think that a lot of the parents here probably are very familiar with some of the signs when you first talk to, young children, or like you can talk to parents of young children who have experienced, like their children not answering to their teachers when called on by name, not being able to, when you get a report card that says that they don't play well with other kids and that they're usually, off by themselves, that you don't answer questions in class, don't speak up in class, that, sometimes, some things that should be very easy for some kids are very, very difficult. And then some things that are very, very difficult are very, very easy, strangely easy. And I think that, there are some things that are much more difficult to diagnose, especially for young girls. I think that, a lot of times people don't talk about that, but, boys are often more easily diagnosed than girls because of societal things that make us very good at mimicking and then understanding how how certain social things work without understanding how certain social things work. Sometimes, we have, like the way that I think is often cause and effect. And I look at things and I think, wow, if this person does this thing, then this is the effect that they get. And, over time, I can do it a lot faster, but as a child, I did it a lot slower. And so I also, would think about a lot of different things in a way that I think, now is maybe a strength rather than a weakness, I think. And I think that, what is really, really helpful, for my parents now is knowing that I have a lot more tools. I think my parents always really feared getting me a diagnosis, even though they knew that there were some things that were probably a little off. And I think that culturally, there were things that were very desired. I think for young kids on the spectrum for the things that we exhibit, they're very much desired culturally within the Asian American family. For example, I very naturally did not look directly into my parents' eyes when they were talking to me or yelling at me. And I think that they never thought that there was something wrong when I didn't meet them. talking to them, meet their eyes. Some things were, very easy for me, such as I was very, very good at mathematics. I was very, very good at piano. And I was able to play Chopin at 7, and I was the Baroque champion of Texas at like 7 or 8. And I did not know how to tie my shoelaces, and I did not know how to ride a bike, and I did not know how to do things that other kids in the neighborhood were doing, or even my little younger siblings were doing. And so I think that those little discrepancies, make it so that it's a lot more obvious when I was a child, but nobody thought to take me in for any kind of testing or diagnosis or anything, because my parents found it desirable that I would prefer to read alone, or that I would prefer to play piano alone. And they never thought that just because I was lonely and had no friends, that maybe this was actually a learning disability. And, I think to a lot of folks that, even though I don't like to even say that it's a learning disability for me, because I have really come to learn that it's actually a superpower in a lot of ways, because my colleagues have, noticed that I am probably the only person that reads the entire budget from cover to cover. And I'm somebody who has intense hyperfocus. Yeah, it's very thick, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages. And I can do it very fast. And I think that a lot of people, didn't realize that, even though I was a little kid, people would call me the encyclopedia, or somebody would tell me that, you have really strange memory, that it's like almost like a computer. But it was, part of, I think, my superhero power of being able to have really, really good memory and really, really high ability to, be able to focus, and I think that a lot of times there is a double-edged sword to all of that, because I don't pay attention to some of my surroundings when things that I'm focused on are in front of me. And I think that there's been times when I've almost been hit by a car because I'm so focused on what's in front of me. I've had risks of losing a conversation, or not very much, because I was just so anxious about one thing, I would lose focus of another thing. And I think that, being neurodiverse, you start to understand like some of these things that you're picking up. And I think that a lot of times people don't understand that I struggle with those things. And there are a lot of things that I need tools to be able to utilize. And after my diagnosis, I will say that after my diagnosis, and it was very powerful to be diagnosed, I think, even though a lot of times I think Asian American parents feel like there's a stigma to being diagnosed, and I think that we need to break that a little bit, because I was able to have the tools to help me to be able to do some of the things that I really wanted to do. And so for the folks who are saying in the chat, how did I train myself to be comfortable in public speaking and to learn to work with people? I think that it was really difficult. When I was younger, I had a very bad stutter, and I actually had to take speech therapy. And even though they were treating the symptom of something that is, actually my being having autism spectrum disorder, it was a symptom of it, but it wasn't something that that my parents had diagnosed, but they were okay with me taking speech therapy because of the fact that I had a stutter. And so that was actually something that was very helpful for me. 现在我咬字的时候很清楚，所以每一次讲话的时候我不会结巴。So I think that, it's still really difficult for me. And I think that because it's difficult, it's something that I really wanted to do. And I think that that's also part of my being very stubborn. And I really, had a hard time expressing that to my parents, that it was the difficult things that I wanted, that were the difficult things that I experienced that I wanted to do even more. My mom was thinking, why don't you go be a doctor? You don't have to go talk to a lot of people. And, you're very good at all of these biology things and math things. And you could pass the classes very easily. But for me, I I actually would rather do something that was difficult, and that was to be able to do public speaking, to advocate for others, and do the things that other people said that I wouldn't be able to do. And I think that, you know, now I know that it's really important for me to share my lens on that as well.
Yeah. So thank you very much. I'm really impressed with that. You know, we have two very important actually things you mentioned. One is the growth. Right now we know under the boy and the girl is 4 minus 1, but more and more people realize that the growth is underdiagnosis. It is a really issue here because everything we choose, everything we diagnosis, we based on the male and the boys there, right? And we really need more. I think Andy, right? You probably know this one is better from UA because for the girls, the number definitely is under. It should not be that low, right?
Absolutely correct. Assemblywoman Niou was absolutely right that many women are able to have strategies to either mimic or camouflage some of the behaviors, so they appear to be more social and socially competent than their peers. But it takes a lot of work and takes a lot out of the individual.
Yeah. So other one is I'm also thinking about that. For the parents, especially for the immigrant parents, right? When we child have those different things there, it's not easy for us to know because when my son came out, when he was born all these symptom hairs here. Because that time for like almost 3 years, I never heard the word called autism before. I never heard that one. So I cannot relate all these different things. Why my baby is so difficult? Why he was so crying so often? Why he's so fussy on the wearing clothes? I cannot connect the dots together. So that is how important education. We always educating how important for the parents side there, right? So this is also one of the purpose here with today is that, if we have the national training center set up, it will get benefits for generation of the parents, right? So when your child starting have this one, you already think about, okay, I should do something like that. I should do something this one, because early diagnosis, you got a lot of benefit, educational therapy, everything come here, right? So, but it's on the other hand, I'm also very impressed because when we're talking about autism, we're all talking about the negative parts, how much impact. But for you, some of them, for example, your social interaction may be called disadvantage. I don't see much, or maybe I did not feel. On the other hand, I see your very unique style, very, very straightforward. It looks like you're always speaking, whatever you're thinking, you speak out. It's not really like a politician, right? Because sometimes I saw your face, I'm just surprised you just speak out the word, directly go back to them, So this is, I think, for many parents, this actually, it is an advantage because lots of people like the people like you can speak from heart to mouth, whatever you're thinking, whatever you speak, right? Because we see so many people, try to manipulate or whatever to this one. So we can see a representative like you, okay? You speak just whatever you want to that, and lots of people like you, right? So for me, some people say, hey, why Yuh-Line is autistic? How she can be autistic? But I was thinking myself, look at the way she sometimes speaks. It is my girl on the spectrum, just the one. I remember I read the one of the Nobel Prize winner, Vinod Smith. He's on the Asperger's spectrum. the people ask him, what is the advantage your autism brings to you? He said, when I have my thought, I just speak out. I don't care who else thinking about it, because I believe it. I just speak out. I stick on it. Eventually, it will accept by everybody else. So this is, you can take the disadvantage to advantage, right? So I think this is what exactly you live your way like this, right? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things, people, I am the only politician that can't lie.
And the read of the sound hundreds how deal.
I don't know how, and I think that a lot of times people, there's some things that are very interesting in politics when it comes to being on the spectrum, because I think that a lot of times people don't realize that I am straightforward and blunt, and I don't mean to hurt any feelings, but sometimes, I do, and I try to tell people that ahead of time in case of anything, hurting somebody's feelings, because I don't mean to. I still remember when I was very young, 我很小的时候，我爸爸那个有一次骂我骂得很厉害，是因为我们家那个。就是我们家其实我小的时候不是很有钱，and we were very poor when I was growing up, and even like my saying that, my parents would hate that I said that, I know that mentally, I know that intellectually, but at the same time I still say it because it's the truth and I can't stop myself. But I didn't understand this, and now I understand it after time and after being after explaining it to me. But when I was little, I remember my dad, he was so angry with me because he had just come home from work, and I told him, I was like, our electricity was cut off, and he's like, what? Our electricity was cut off? And I was like, I think you didn't pay the bill. And I said, 用中文讲一下，就是说我爸爸他那天回家的时候，他才刚刚下班，然后我跟他讲，我们的店被人家关了，好像你没付账单。So my father was so angry with me. He felt it was so disrespectful for me to say that, but I didn't understand that. I just said the whole situation the way that it is, and I gave him the hypothesis that I had of why the situation was the way that it was. And I still remember my shock that he was so upset with me, and I was so upset, but I didn't know what to say to him to make it better. And I remember this is one of the very pivotal moments for me where I realized that very clearly that the things I say are not actually being taken the way that I thought that I said them, and I think that was one of those moments where even though my parents, they try so hard to, they thought maybe it was, a lot of times people, when you have a generation gap or where you have a language access gap, a lot of times they assume that maybe it's a communication thing. But in actuality, for me, I didn't understand the emotions behind what he was experiencing, and I couldn't understand, I didn't put those things together. It happens a lot, and I try to, and I think that a lot of times, because I'm on the spectrum, even though I want to be able to understand how people are feeling about something, or I think I know, because I can see, read the signs, cause and effect on their face, or, I've seen it multiple times. I know that there are things that I'm missing. And I know that sometimes if there's something that caused somebody to be angry with me, I need to have a better conversation with them to let them understand where I'm coming from and what I might have missed, and let them know that it's not coming from I now know that there's a difference between intent and impact, right? My intentions are very different from sometimes the impact that it might have on something that I say. But yes, I am very blunt. I am very straightforward. And when it comes to policy work, and when it comes to things that you know, I can see like, oftentimes I can see a bigger picture without somebody else having to explain so many things. I can see a lot of different cause and effects for a lot of different things, and I can look at it in a way that I think a lot of people don't. So, you know, I'm not sure how to better describe it, except, you know, those are the words that I have right now, but it makes it so that I can say that, you know, even when you think that your kids are not, you know, thinking about your feelings, they are. And even when, you know, if your reaction is something that they can't understand, they're trying to. So I just want to give you that encouragement. And I know that, you know, I know that my parents struggle a lot with me. And I think that that's also why it's so powerful that all of you are here today, because, you know, I know that this is, you're trying to be the best parents that you can be. And I really, really wish that my parents had these tools and these talks and these groups to be able to have had more support, because I think that, you know, they struggled a lot on their own, and they didn't ever know that it wasn't, you know, their fault, and it wasn't my fault, and it wasn't like for any reason. And it wasn't because we weren't communicating as people. I think that it was like love on all sides, you know, but I think that a lot of times it gets lost.
Yeah. So it is as a parent, we really learn the lessons from other parents. This is very important, because we see how they missed, you know, because lots of things is history. It's not their fault. It's just a history here. But we learn more and more. We especially for learning lots of lessons, like you grow up there, so we can go back to reflect ourselves there, because to raise a special needs children, it is just it's really task there. It's also it's a way how we ourselves to raise ourselves, to build ourselves learning, make the parents themselves better understanding how learn to communicate, how understanding the different aspect of the children there. So this is very important. This is the way when we raise the children is also the both track. We also learning on the side there. This is very important. We keep talking to communicate with parents this one, because the keep learning. It is for us is the most important thing. So we can understand our children, understand their difference, understand their uniqueness, right? I'm really, I know you're very busy, but I'm wondering if we have the chance, you can have another chance, you can speak to our young people on the autism spectrum, especially because right now, AFI, we are supporting the parents, especially special needs. We have a group for the autistic children there. We have a group for ADHD. We have a group for depression and bipolar. We see a lot of young people like them. They just lost. They just confused. They don't know what is a good role model for them there, right? So we really think that when you have some time, we can come together. You can directly talk to young people. Let them see you as an example, as you as a role model. Let them see, even you're different, you are special need. You still can be anything you really want. You can be a politician. you can be a statesman. You can be a representative for us. You can go to public service. You can be engineer. You can be scientist, right? The autism is not the same necessary to block you, to hold you up there. It's only one part of your identity, right? So, we really hope we continue this conversation.
Yeah, I would be honored to actually talk to young people. I think that, I always wish that I had a lot of folks to talk about, my own, journey with as well. I think that, one of the things that I definitely, I definitely, needed to hear was other people who had also gone through and are still going through, the different things to be able to manage some of the things that happen within being on the spectrum. I will also say this, and I think that, Andy's probably even better at the statistics than I am for some of these things when it comes to our general, statistics on folks on the ASD spectrum. And I think that, one of the things that, I've always had to really kind of understand about myself is that because, especially, my feelings, I'm reading some of these comments, and I will say that, my feelings are probably a little more intense than other people. And I don't know that. I only know things from my own perspective. And so a lot of times I feel like there's no way of expressing it. And so when I was a lot younger, I would, throw tantrums that were not, I know that I did, but it wasn't, something that I did on purpose. It was just that I had so many things inside of me that, were so, it felt like so much that I couldn't express it. There was like nothing that I could do to express it or get it out or like make myself feel better. Self-soothing was something that I had to learn. And that's something that is something as an adult that I had to learn. And I learned a lot better. And there's a lot of different tools that I've gotten. And I think that, people don't realize that when you're a little kid, you don't have those tools all for yourself. And so, when I was a kid, how some kids suck on their thumbs to self-soothe? I had a different habit, and my parents were always so upset with my habit because, they just felt it was so strange. And it was a repetitive behavior that they just felt was embarrassing. And, I still remember my volume control was very off. I still have volume control issues. Like sometimes when people are like, why are you whispering? And then other times they're like, you laughed way too loud, and I think that there are these things that, will always kind of be a thing. But I still also know that there are even more insidious things. Girls on the spectrum also tend to have have a higher statistic. There was a study of, domestic violence in their relationships as adults, and also, being the victim of, and then also having abusive relationships, not because of, any kind of fault of theirs, but just because they seem too empathetic. And I think that a lot of times they can, there's like that issue, right? And I think that, if you're on the spectrum, you tend to have stronger emotions, and people tend to think that that makes you much more vulnerable, right? And I think that, so if there's people who are abusive or predatory around you, there tends to be a gravitation towards somebody who's hyper empathetic. Even if they're not able to express it, it's still something that is there. And I know that that's something that, is still being, I guess, statistically studied. It's something that's still out there right now. And Andy can probably talk a little bit more about that. But I think that there's, folks who are probably also just now learning some of the tools that girls have, women have, that they've built up. And, the signs for, what Mr. Feng was saying, about how, some people say that, they can't tell that I have autism spectrum disorder is because, the signs that are telling are very different once you're an adult, because everybody had different coping tools and different soothing tools or different mechanisms that, they've taken up over time that will help them to be able to navigate things differently over time. And I think that, some of the things that I use, are going to be different from the things that other people use, and I think that, over time, finding the things that work for you are the things that will be the things that you carry on, and then over time with practice, different things can sometimes work better, and sometimes other thing you'll need another tool over a certain amount of time, right? And I think that for me, the repetitive behaviors that were so telling, I needed to learn how to stop them, but I didn't know how to, and my parents kind of like did it by force, and that made me also hyper anxious. And I think that I don't know how to better describe that, except for the fact that because they took away that like ability for me to self-soothe, I started to have depression and anxiety. And I don't, and maybe Andy, you can talk a little bit about that, but it's those are some of the things that were very hard for me.
Yeah. So Andy, what's your perspective here?
Yeah, I mean, I think Assembly Woman Niou really brought up a very important issue about the way that women experience autism differently than men or boys. I think we're just, doing more research in this area now, learning more now after many years. But what she related is absolutely true, is that many women have these, camouflage strategies, right? They mimic appropriate social behaviors, even when they don't fully understand it. And because of that, I think even though they are able to function, in a wider range of social environments and social interaction, it does take a lot out of the individual, right? And it still doesn't go to address the basic challenges that the individual have. And oftentimes it does lead to additional mental health distress, anxiety, depression, and so on. And it's an area that we're just starting to learn about, how we need to really provide better support and services for women on the spectrum, especially during transition years, right? Assembly Woman Niou mentioned that as well. It's a confusing time for anyone, but during transition years, it's particularly difficult. And of course, if you're on the spectrum and your family member and loved one not fully aware of the challenges you're facing, they can't support you the way you need to be, and so it ends up being difficult for everybody all around. So certainly, thank you so much for highlighting that such an important issue, Assemblywoman Niou. Thank you very much.
So this is a very important, because one of us as AFI, we try to do parents is we starting the discussion with the puberty and autism together, because when the child is going to puberty, the challenge is coming from the natural body development, the sexually development, his ability to socially to express himself, includes the rigid behavior to try to all to come together. So this is we have been have a couple of seminars we're discussing, and we try to do more and more deeper and more personal, because this is a bigger stage than the parents starting to feel frustrated, the kids starting to rebel, all the issue come here, and especially for right now, the mental health issue is coming almost this with the puberty and they grow up and all this pandemic all together, right? So this is a really thing. We also need lots of professional help to help us here. We have some of the professional come here, but we still more, especially on the mental health side there, who understand the young man on the spectrum. They also understand, of course, as Chinese community as a whole. Wow, because we did not talking mental health openly, freely, but this one is a hard topic, right? So this is very, very interesting. And also I know that for the women, especially for the young the women on the spectrum, later on they realize that they are on the spectrum, but they have been suffering or the confusing so many years before. It's causing a really lasting damage, because when I see this group, the one of the topic is masking, right? We're talking about masking, put a mask on. And I found out many of them are the women, young women, and they are suffering because all the frustration, the hiding behind the mask eventually come out and causing the real mental illness, everything. So this is a really, some more research and more discussing need to be there, because that's the boy and the girl want for is definitely not accurate as I see, and we will do more and more. We will not let the history repeat again. Right, Andy, right? So that's, it's on your shoulder right now, right? So I'm so one thing is I'm sure that Yuh-Line and we can continue this conversation, especially we can have a great choose to you talking to young people directly, because we see so many young people, very talented, but it's also very struggling. And this is a great role model. And I know you'll continue running for senator, and we wish you all the best. I put your site on the chat. Is www.newfornewyork.com, right? That's your campaign site, right? So, especially if the parents, you come from Lower Manhattan, District 75, that's the one you need to vote, because she is one of us, basically. She is one of us, okay? Not as the Chinese community is also on the spectrum there, right? So, we really appreciate. And if you have a young man try to volunteer for the campaign for Yuh-Line for the New York State Senator, you're really welcome, and you will get a very good. I think all of them volunteer. Many of them are very young people.
Yes.
Very energetic. I saw your pictures. Crazy.
I will tell you that actually there are about 7 or 8 of them who are actually on the autism spectrum.
Oh, that's great.
So I think that it's really great, because they, they're actually some of the most enthusiastic, actually. They're amazing. Yeah.
Can they also help from outside New York City?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Folks can donate. Folks can help, call people or to spread the word. But the only thing that you can't do is vote, right? So you have to vote in the district. But 有2种票，投票跟钞票。
Yeah. So
if you want me to, I can also answer some of the questions in the chat.
Yeah, sure.
I don't want to leave.
I think somebody you can see the chat, right? You can answer anyone you want there. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't want to leave anybody hanging. I know that there's so many folks who had given me questions, and I know that somebody had asked if I was actually have Asperger's instead of ASD, and I don't have Asperger's. I'm not an ASB. I have autism spectrum disorder. That's what was diagnosed, but I think that there are Asperger's is also on the spectrum for ASD, and so just so people have a better understanding. And I think that I'm sorry, I'm just going to go through them in order because I don't want to. This is how my brain works. I'm sorry. So I will just try to do it as much as I can for whatever time that you have. I'm always willing to speak to everyone. But I wanted to also answer the question of what resources and tools that parents might have to help their kids. I think it's different for everyone. So I think the best thing to do is to talk to somebody who is actually a professional therapist. I think that there's a lot of folks that Andy might have connections to. Andy, you might want to put your resources and guides into the chat so that they can have that. But what would be really, really great, I think, is also to ask, other folks in your resource groups, like which are some of the things that have worked for them. Because I think that, on my end, my parents, we didn't have very many things until I was diagnosed. So my dad, I had a lot of OCD as a kid. And I know that that's something that is a little bit more telling, but a lot of folks still think that it's just OCD, right? It's just a little bit of obsessive compulsive disorder, and it's not linked to anything else. But now, that I have my diagnosis, it's a lot easier to tell, that, hey, the self-soothing mechanisms, the constant repetitive movements, the volume control, like the issues when it comes to not having the ability to pay attention in class in the way that they want me to, even though I know everything, I just wasn't doing the things that they wanted me to. I was reading in math class, right? Like things like that. That was all part of it. It's just a lot of times, like people did not, I didn't have the diagnosis, so people were only looking at the actual symptoms. So I had to brush my teeth like every hour, on the hour. Like I was insistent to my father that I brush my teeth all the time. So instead of just being like, stop brushing your teeth, like, or whatever, my dad was very supportive. And I think that there's like tools like being a support, just being supportive is, and not telling me I'm a crazy person or whatever was really helpful. My dad just put Dixie cups because when I was little, he just had to lift me up to brush my teeth. So instead of like having to open the sink for me every time, he just put Dixie cups around the sink and then put my toothbrush there. And then every time he would just put a little toothpaste. So I just brush my teeth and then go back to doing whatever I wanted to do, right? And so, just a little bit of support and, understanding, it makes it so that, and don't question, I think like the certain thing, it made it so that my parents were like, very supportive in the way that they didn't even know that they were being for me. It wasn't intentional, like, oh, this is because of her, diagnosis or anything, because I didn't have one. But I felt like that was a really big tool for me, is that my parents they didn't think of me having a disability. In some aspects, that was almost like helpful, right? Like in some aspects, because they just thought, well, okay, so she needs to brush her teeth. We'll just line the sink with Dixie cups. And so I think that, just certain things that were also helpful for me was like, I think on my end, I like I said, I had a hard time when my parents took away like my ability to self-soothe, and so I think that for me, I needed to learn different things to be able to do something that was acceptable to them. And it was really hard to figure it out. And so I had a lot of anxiety on that front. And I think that, most of my anxiety came from not wanting to disappoint my parents. And I know that that's maybe a lot of Asian American kids, but that's also a lot of kids on the spectrum as well. And I think that, the anxiety is like up here when it's, when you don't know how to express it, and I think that then I would, be so frustrated that I would like, act out in a way that my parents would, get even more upset, and then just goes into a very bad cycle, and then, and I think because they didn't understand, they just thought that, like, this is a terrible reaction and we have to discipline it, instead of, trying to, understand why I would be that upset, right? And I think that there was a lot of like trying to discipline a behavior out of me, and I think that it really is not about like trying to get rid of a certain behavior, but instead, I think the best tool was just to actually, try to understand where I was coming from. And I think that that was really something that, in the end, when we were adults, both of us were adults, my parents and I, we got to have a better discussion, but only after I had built a lot of tools in my own toolkit for myself. And I think that, when you start off a lot younger with a toolkit with your parents, which is why this bill is so great, which is why, these organizations are so important, and this expansion of like having these tools, go to parents and then give them to their kids, like it's so important, right? Because you're going to, not have to go and have those really hard moments as much as if you didn't. And so there was another question that I felt was really, really important, and it was linked to what Mr. Feng was saying about, about adolescence. I will say that I was my parents were, I was so difficult in some aspects. going through puberty and everything. And part of it was also based off of something else that happened to me as a young person. And I think that, now when I look back, it's obviously like I was very, very afraid of my own body. I was afraid of my own changes, and they broke out of my patterns, like it was something that like really frightened me, because I didn't know that people, like, why all of a sudden it felt like everybody was talking about me or something. It was I became very paranoid about it after especially I was sexually assaulted by my teacher when I was in high school. And I think that there was and not understanding of like what I did wrong or like what was happening. And I also did not know how to advocate for myself. And I was very upset that my parents didn't know how to advocate for me. And because, they're immigrant parents and they didn't know, what were some things that, other people might know to do. And I didn't understand that I was angry at them, because it didn't, to me, it was very difficult for me to understand that part, and then, we were having so many clashes and fights that my parents actually, they decided that it would be easier for them to leave me in the United States and have me under the care of my grandparents. And I think that, there was a question that said, I wonder if you could share your thoughts on how parents could develop a strong relationship with kids on the spectrum. And I think that for me, I have a very strong relationship now with my parents, but I will say that it takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of patience, and on both ends. It's not just on one end, it's on both ends. And I think that, parents of course can develop a strong relationship with their kids on the spectrum. But it is hard. It's something that, because it's hard, it's more worth it, I think. Again, I think that it's even more meaningful, I think, because I will say that, now my mom and my dad are my best advocates, and my mom and my dad are also the ones who have really grown. I think after my diagnosis, I was afraid to tell my parents at first, and actually once I had talked to them, they were telling me, no, it's not true. It can't be true. This is an American thing. It's not really like a thing for Chinese kids. And so I told them, it's very obvious, off of my report cards when I was a kid, or even off of, the behaviors that I had, and over time they started to read more, learn more, and with the new tools that we have such a strong relationship. I think that it really is about making sure that, the parents, like Mr. Feng is like really good about educating himself and also advocating for others. But I think that all of you as parents, like when you're on here, you're already trying to get the tools that you need to be able to have that strong relationship. So it's not about like, how could you develop a strong relationship? It's that you already have one. And it's also understanding that, by your trying to learn more and trying to do more, you're already like building that relationship. Because even if we're throwing a tantrum, or even if we're not able to get out a sentence, it's because sometimes the emotions are just too strong, and it's not because of actually being angry at you. And I think that that's something that's really important. And I also wanted to address like some of the comments saying that I don't sound like I have ASD at all. I think that again, we talked about the fact that there is masking behaviors, and yes, it does take a lot out of me to be able to express myself in these moments. I think that it's it's often hard to have an invisible disability, actually, in some ways, because I don't think of it as much of a disability in my case, but I do think that, you know, there are moments when it's really, really, really hard. And I think that, you know, I'm glad that I guess I'm glad in some ways that I don't have the tells anymore, I guess, in some aspects, but I think that I am also concerned that, you know, I don't want people to think that you know, I guess I don't want people to think that I'm, you know, like advertising that you can get rid of all of them. I mean, right now, just now, I mean, because I'm so nervous, I've like scratched myself to the point of where I'm a little bit bleeding. So I think that, you know, people they can't see everything that's going on inside, right? And I think that that's something that, you know, even if you can mimic and can mask, it doesn't make it so that, you know, it's necessarily even the healthiest way of going about things, and not even the best way of being able to, you know, have your kids present. And so I don't know how to better put it. Maybe Andy can help me. But it's really hard sometimes to have that pressure of like not showing certain signs. And I think that that's something that I think that we all need to have a better discussion about, and maybe we can talk about it more another time. And then, you know, somebody had asked if rather stopping those self-stimulating behaviors, parents try to distract kids instead, do you think it will help? I think yes and no. I think that sometimes, and Andy's like nodding. I think yes and no. I think that sometimes if you're not letting your kid do the thing that they need to do to get it out of their system or to soothe, it could be harmful. And then also, you know, yes, sometimes like, you know, distracting is good to maybe get the emotion to change in a different direction. But I think that, like, I oftentimes tell my partner, so I have a partner, and, you know, when I have like a panic attack or something, it, you know, maybe it could help if I was more distracted, but it sometimes makes it worse, you know. And I will say that sometimes I just need to, you know, have the moment and then take the time to, you know, get the emotion, I guess, out as much as I can. I don't know how to better describe the way that it comes out, but I do think that, you know, it's not, my self-soothing behaviors are ones that are, I'm now like understanding as, you know, less harmful than what I could potentially do to myself if I don't. And so I think that that's something that folks probably should keep in mind. And, you know, I actually will admit that, and this is something that very few people probably in policy would have, or politics would ever admit. And, you know, Mr. Feng, you pointed it out that I will always have to tell the truth, and I will always, you know, it's very direct, but I definitely, you know, had self-harming behaviors, you know, and I think that there are certain things that, you know, I started to understand better about myself, and I used to feel very guilty about them. You know, I used to feel very guilty because I was like, why did I do that? Like, now my parents are gonna have to like go and, you know, take me to the hospital. Like, I feel bad, you know, and I embarrass them, you know, because then they have to answer all kinds of questions about why I did this and whatever happened, you know. And I think that, you know, but I had a therapist, and she was really, really, really great. And what she told me, which now I better understand, and I will share with you, is that my self-soothing behavior was me trying to be alive. My self-soothing behavior was actually me trying to keep myself alive, and to actually like get, it was myself helping myself to not cause more harm to myself. And so I think that it's really important for you to, you know, most of the time, like, you know, as long as it's not harmful, let your child to be able to self-soothe. And how did you overcome the anxieties, and what will be the main milestone? I haven't. I haven't overcome any of my anxieties, but I think that over time, I think that as I've grown older, I have become a lot more understanding of my own thinking patterns. And I think that I have also told myself, even though I see everybody else in cause and effect, I also see myself in cause and effect. And I think that I can see like, oh, this is a direction that I shouldn't take, or it's going to get worse. And then but sometimes I do let myself go there because it's easier. And then, but I now know that I have choices. And I think that comes with the toolbox and the toolkit that I got through having somebody who understood, autism spectrum disorder be a therapist for me in my early 20s once I was diagnosed. And I think that part's really important. I definitely now understand like that there are choices in how I deal with a situation. And I think that those are important toolboxes for any adult, much less somebody who is on the spectrum. And yeah, I don't know. This one's for Dr. Andy Shih. What are your thoughts on the advocacy around separating severe and classic autism apart from the neurodiversity discourse?
Thank you for that. First of all, Assemblywoman Niou, I just want to say that thank you so much for being so candid and so courageous and sharing your story. I don't think it's often that families and parents hear this kind of story, especially from their children. And I think it's really incredibly powerful. And the fact that you go into all the detail and the nuances, not only what you see in terms of what your parents are reacting to your behavior, but what you're thinking as well, I think is very, very helpful for them. Oftentimes, I think the main challenge between a caregiver and their children on the spectrum was one of communication, understanding. They don't understand what the behavior means, right? And I think what you're doing now in terms of helping the parents on this particular form to understand that is really important and hugely helpful. Thank you so much. Now, regarding the question about severe and challenging autism, I know that there's been a lot of conversation about profound autism. That was recently highlighted in the Lancet Commission report on autism. And my understanding, as you know, Dr. Lord, who is the lead of that report, serves on the Science Advisory Committee of Autism Speaks. And our understanding is that the reason that the author decided to highlight that particular term is because there's a general sense that they're underrepresented in terms of our research activities and also our conversation about support and services. And I think that is true. If you look at the literature, and certainly for individuals with complex and oftentimes severe needs, more work and more research are needed so that we can better support them. But I think that doesn't. I don't want that to distract from the I think the overall key messages, which is that timely access to support and services, appropriate support and services, is really important for everybody, right? And all the children, as well as teens and adults. I think Assemblywoman Niou really highlighted the importance, even though she was diagnosed in her 20s. It sounded like that she had a terrific support, terrific therapist who helped her navigate through a lot of the issue that she was trying to deal with. So I think this is also the reason that I think the Autism Family Caregiver Act is so important, because as Assemblywoman Niou and also Congresswoman Meng have highlighted, what it does is that it really helps the parent to understand their child better, right? No parent really come to this world knowing how to raise or properly support a child on the spectrum. And so this tool, this program really is to gear towards help caregivers to better understand how to accommodate their children, right? How to support their growth the way it needs to be. There was a comment in the chat earlier about whether or not this intervention, this program is really ABA based, because some of them were concerned that it may elicit concerns from the neurodiversity perspective. I think the important thing I want to highlight about the caregiver skill training program is that it's less about changing the child. I think there's a lot of intervention and treatment out there that really focus on changing the child, making your child different. And I think maybe a different way to look at it, maybe a helpful way to look at it, is really about creating a nurturing and accommodating environment for your child, because they are going to be different. They are going to be developed. Their needs and part of the development is going to be different. The educational differences is going to be there. Social interaction is going to be different. I think it's incredibly important for caregivers and parents to understand that difference, to understand that this behavior is communication, and to learn what your child is telling you through the behavior. For example, the stimming or the soothing behavior that some of the women mentioned. That's exactly it. It's self-soothing, right? It's a way for her to feel better, so there's not a downward spiral in terms of anxiety and depression that becomes more and more overwhelming over time. And I think for caregiver to understand that these behaviors, has a therapeutic purpose in some ways, right? And it's a calming purpose. And to be able to support them and appropriately, I think is really will make a huge difference for both the child as well as the family in general. So sorry for that long-winded answer, but that's
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Perfect, because for the parents here, we talking about again is that if your child behavior weird, we call it weird, there must be a reason behind it. Okay, it is a reason maybe make you cry because something he cannot express himself, he cannot be adjust the environment, something. There must be reason, especially for the children on the autism spectrum. So as parents, learning, how do you find out what's the purpose of the behavior, what's the benefits, what's good things, what's bad things, right? So this is really from a unique experience, this stories, how their parents treating, when he was young, when she was young. This is a really thing is we try to keep ourselves doing is that we educate the parents. From parent side, we educate, we keep educating, we keep learning. We're learning from professional, we're learning from parents ourselves, because that purpose is, the thing is how we can help our children. That per period. We're not changing him, not to suppress him, not to blame him, right? We try to help him. We try to help him to become how functional on behavior, right? So this is a very good one. We just try to talking about this, Andy, especially you. I know you have a long history, because when I was, I found my son autism about 20 years now. I searched internet, your name come out because you already are a scientist there. So I remember the day we have Chinese people there. Then later I saw your Autism Speaks all the work years. It includes that World Autism Day. Johnson, you are behind that one, right? I know maybe you're not on the top, but you are behind all this one. But I'm particularly interested for this program, CST. It's called Caregiver Skill Training. It's to help the parents understand what your children behave about, how understand behind all this autistic stuff there, right? How this one? I know that we in New York State, New York City, we have Charles Wang, we have CARES. They can provide the training in Chinese, right? So I just post on the link. Is from Autism Speaks. They have some video there. Also, you told me that WHO, World Health Organization, already one. Can you tell us more about this program here, Andy?
Sure, Bing. Thank you so much for this opportunity. So as you know, I've been working mostly internationally for more than a decade, right? So and when I travel around the world, many times to low and middle income countries, including Chinese-speaking territories, you hear very similar stories from families, right? Is that they don't understand what's going on, they don't know what to do, they feel helpless in that they're not able to provide the support that they want for their children, and I think the difficulty also is that even though in some countries, in some community, there are professionals who can provide supports and services, most of the time, intervention as we know it is an aspiration, right? Because when you go to a country that has, one pediatrician for 10 million kids, there's not even a conversation to be had about what to do with children with developmental disabilities like autism. So the issue of capacity is really a global problem, right? I mean, it doesn't matter whether I go to China or I go to Africa. The fact is that we don't have enough people providing the kind of support that is needed for the well-being of our kids. So the Autism Speaks and WHO got together about 5 years ago to try to solve this problem. We were fortunate that we have learned from research at that point in other areas, in public health and in other mental health conditions, that there are strategies that you can employ where you can actually train non-specialists, including caregivers and parents and family members, on skills and techniques that are informed by evidence, that are informed by science. In other words, there are things that parents and people in the community can do that is based on science that are actually effective in supporting individuals on the spectrum as well as their families. So what we did is that we packaged all these key strategies together. We call them the active ingredients, and we piloted these packages globally. I'm very pleased to say that we were fortunate to engage many helpful and influential and knowledgeable and gracious family members and advocates and professionals, and so that all the Chinese-speaking territory from mainland to Taiwan to Hong Kong, Singapore have access to this program now, right? And of course, with the work that's being done in the U.S. With organizations such as CARES and Charles Wang Community Health Center, we are also reaching out to the Chinese diaspora around the world at this point with this package. And the thing that we're most grateful about this package is exactly what we've been talking about for the past hour or so, is that it really gives the caregiver the tools to better understand the needs of their child and how to better support their children's social communication development as well as positive behaviors. And what we're seeing now from implementing this program, especially, it's gratifying for me to see this program being implemented in places like, Taiwan and Hong Kong and Guangzhou and Dongguan, China, is that the parents are really, find it extremely useful, feasible. They can integrate into their daily routine. And most importantly, they see a change in the way they interact with their children and the way they're able to support their needs and so on. So I'm very, very grateful to Congresswoman Meng for really, developing this legislation and introducing it. And I'm also extremely grateful that we have now, I think, over 30 or 40 co-sponsors in the House of Representatives for this bill. Of course, more is needed, because I think what it will do is that, and as it's starting to do already, is it really will transform the access to evidence-based support that our families so desperately need around the world.
Yeah, so Andy, I'm very, one thing I know that is WHO already put this one as a global health package offered to all the people in the world. And I log into their site. later I can share the WHO site is here. You can log in. And also they said the other language coming this year, right? Of course, you will include Chinese, right?
Yes, that's right. We're actually doing field testing right now, and we're working with Dr. Zhou Xiaobing in Sun Yat-sen University Third Affiliate Hospital in Guangzhou. And his team is helping us make the adaptation to the e-learning version. And we hope to make that available in Chinese later this year.
Yeah. So 刚才史先生讲，这个叫做 Caregiver Training Center， 就是照顾者技能培训现在呢是在世界卫生组织那个网站上已经公布，大家可以去就是免费的可以去登记，它是英文的，但是他们也说今年的中文的其他语言的也会出来。刚才石先生说呢，是中国的合作方呢是我们广州的中山三院的周小兵教授非常有名的一个专家，周小兵教授是牵头的所以这个是因为even in New York City, even your program is targeted to so-called underdevelopment or developing country. But if you're looking for the parents in New York City, we did not have formal training. Lots of parents don't know the basic behavior intervention, don't know basic autism knowledge, right? So it is a huge gap everywhere, it's everywhere. So this is we try to asking all the parents, we of course we can learn it ourselves, but we also need to help build a system. We need to promote the system to all the people by generation, right? If you have national training center set up, then all the new parents will automatically get this one there, okay? All this beautiful the evidence-based program there by lots of research, lots of evidence background there. It's a real one because as parents, we also need to know how to tell the fake one and the real one. Okay, we have lots of tragedy already. The parents believe some magic stuff there, then it's causing lots of issues. They call it even children's life. Okay, so we also need to promote. For us as parents at AFI, we try to tell the parents that there are lots of evidence-based, has been tested, has been research backed up, have really scientific theory backed up there. They have tools already. Right? So we're gonna introducing them to more and more. We keep learning. We keep understanding our children better, and then we help them better. That's only our purpose. Everybody, this is like everybody together, included a profession like Andy, you, like Yuh-Line as part of the individual on the spectrum, right? And as a parent, so we all come together. We all come together from different ways. The one and only purpose is make our children's life better, make them have a more meaningful life, make them more understandable. I really hope that one day autism for my son will not block him all the way his life. 我们中文讲不会成为他的绊脚石。Yeah, of course, he's still like a Yuh-Line. You still try to have something stemming one, some trouble there, maybe different level. My son is like rocking. That's his steaming one. But they still have a chance to be a meaningful life, right? They still can became somebody, in your life. This is all I hope there. Okay, so I really appreciate because everybody come here today. You help us on one way or another, all bigger ways. Like Andy, you put almost your life help us on this one here. And the Yuh-Line, you stand out as our role model, as our mirror. Let parents think about what I do missing, what I can do better, because can I can wish my children one day become you, or maybe not as you, but at least we can help them to grow up healthy, happy, right? Can more over there, can achievement. Everybody on the spectrum have different needs, maybe different target there. They can reach their full life on the other hand here, right? So I really appreciate, especially for Andy, because 2 years ago you invite me and Vincent on conference. That was our first conference outside Chinese one, and we really gained the confidence that we can speak out. My English doesn't matter, but my story, the story behind me as the whole community is really matter. So we keep telling them story there, And also, you probably don't know that. Remember that I asked Vincent to see what he wanted. He said, I want to work, because he's waiting for 9 months to waiting for next job. On the way, we took the train from DC to New York. We got a call from his employment agency, said, we got a fun job for you. And we are so happy. and you bring the good luck to us.
Wow.
Since then, he kept that job for the last 2.5 years, probably, even the pandemic. He keep the same job, same position, keep doing it. So we thank you very much. You bring the good luck to us. Let's see. Anybody have any question?
Well, there was one more question in here,
Yeah.
and I think that maybe this is a good question to even close out with. But one person had asked and said that their son had just gotten this diagnosis. He's 17, hasn't accepted it. It's really hard for the caregivers and himself. And is there anything that can help him accept the diagnosis? And I think maybe all of you both have probably something to say to that. I think that my thing is probably just to say that I think it's really important the programs that you're both promoting and obviously Mr. Feng, you're like amazing and inspiring, and I wish my parents could have had a friend like you when I was younger. And Dr. Shih, you've done so much work for our community, but also for kids like I was. And I think that it's really about destigmatizing. I think that a lot of times people are afraid, and I think that more than anything, I attest that it's actually very empowering to know and to also be able to start working on the things that I needed to work on, to be able to have the tools to be able to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. And I think that a lot of times it's really hard to accept that. I guess probably a lot of people might say that's hard to accept your own limits, but I think that in actuality, the tools that I was given made it so that I had a lot less limits, and it helped me to be able to grow and be able to have the things that I needed to be able to get the tools that I needed to work on the things that I wanted to, and I think that it's really important to be able to, it comes from, also, the nurturing, the caring of your parents and the family and the people around you, to be able to say, it's awesome. And it's really important, and to get those tools, and it's really important to have that diagnosis so that you can have the ability to work on the things that you want to work on, right? And I think that it opens up avenues for you, because the diagnosis doesn't it's not an end, it's a beginning, and I think that a lot of times people don't realize that. So I'm sure that both of you have really important things to say. Some people are asking now about, does somebody have to disclose their ASD diagnosis? Never. By the way, I don't think that people understand that there are HIPAA laws against your medical diagnosis for anything. And I also think that people don't know all the laws here on that front, but somebody was asking if they needed to tell their employer that their kid has ASD, their kid is high functioning, but has some social weaknesses. And I'm going to say this also, when we're talking about like social weaknesses or social strengths, it's all on the spectrum. It's not like saying somebody is weak or strong. It's really about the fact that, we all have different behaviors. Everybody is on a spectrum of something. And I think that, folks don't realize that, what somebody might think as a leadership skill, another person might not think of it that way. And somebody who doesn't think that they have a leadership skill is an awesome leader. I think that, we don't have the same kind of, and sometimes, when you're the person who is being employed, like some of the things that you might think are not strengths are actually strengths for whatever it is that you're doing. And I think that that's really important. Like in politics, I need to be able to see cause and effect. A lot of people probably don't realize that these are strengths for me. But, when I'm, I probably, have some jobs that I probably would have a little bit more struggle in, right? If I had to be a shoelace tire at a shoelace factory, I would definitely not be able to do that. I cannot tie my shoes. I wear slip-ons still to this day. But I think that it's really important for folks to, to realize that, just because you have certain social behaviors, it doesn't make it so that you're necessarily socially weak. And I think that it's really about making sure that, folks understand what that looks like. So I'll let you two answer those questions as well. Mm-hmm.
Andy, what do you have your suggestion for this one here?
No, I just want to say that, for me, I've been in the community now for over 20 years. And the main reason, the reason I got in the community is because I have a cousin who has a child on the spectrum. And I'm embarrassed to say that, I've known that for a long time, but I never really paid that much attention to it until I joined the National Alliance for Autism Research. And what kept me in the community are parents like you, Bing, and self-advocates like Assemblywoman Niou, because you are my teacher. You help me understand the challenges, what's important for you, and what we need to do in order for this, to make this world, this community a better place, more accommodating, more supportive of the differences that we see in individuals on the spectrum. And I think an event like this, where we get to not only share what we do, but also learn from each other, including the hundreds of parents online with all these amazing questions and perspective. I think, it gives me hope, right? It gives me a sense that, the more of this kind of interaction, getting together we do, the greater understanding, awareness, and acceptance we are able to bring to our children, our family, and then we'll be able to help them to create a better future for everybody. So thanks to Meng for all that you do for our family, and especially for Vincent, wonderful young man, and of course, Assemblywoman Niou. Thank you for your courage and for your candor in sharing your story, your true inspiration for many, many individuals on the spectrum, as well as their family member. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Andy. You are so humble. You're really a gentleman. And some parents asking your questions, they don't know that you're a world-class scientist and world-class leader. You did so many things. There's so many benefits, and you always come down, listen to everybody. This is a great. You're a great leader. And for the parent just asking for 17 years old not accepted, one thing I'm really thinking that we think we did more is we're talking too much disadvantage autism bring now. We did not tell the advantages side there. They do have advantages side there. They do have the unique strengths. They have it. For example, my son Vincent, he can only do a janitor job, but he will become a good janitor because he will do the same thing again, same building, same routine again. Other people already tired. They say, 2 weeks, 2 months. He can do 2 years, maybe 4 years, 6 years, right? So that's his stress. That's his good part of it. You know, I'm proud of him that he can use his stress there, right? If you go into office work or somewhere else, you know, maybe it is a miserable for him and miserable for us, but he can be a good janitor. So every person in the world, the God makes something unique for them, right? So let's find out. Let's find out what is unique. Let's talk about the more advantage side, good thing side, stress side. You know, if I'm talking about next time, I'm talking about a politician or whatever, how the positive way, speak broadly, speak straightforward. I think, oh, maybe it's good. You know, maybe he on something with the spectrum. I like it because I like somebody tell me the truth. I don't need to guess.
Yeah,
I don't need to fool around there, right? Everybody like people tell you the truth, right? Nobody like people lie to you. That's the one thing here. So let's talk about more. Let's talk about more stress. I know young people, especially later age, it's very hard to accept it. But let's find out the way. Let's find out, encourage. Not always encourage him that, okay, maybe this one gave you some trouble, but other side maybe give you stress. So where it is, let's looking for it, right? Each individual is different. You know, this is for the parents. We ask them, said, hey, autism is not death penalty. It's not long term. Maybe one, it's a good thing. We just asking, some people said whether you need to be disclosed to an employer. But for my company, I work in a bank in the Wall Street. We have a program called Autism at the Works. We especially hire the people from autism spectrum, right? And we training his co-work, his manager, okay, to working with him, understand. We skipped that interview process, okay, because interview is terrible for them. And then we hire them, and our senior manager have a meeting talking about what's the benefit. One of the benefits, one of the manager think is that it's give me very good impression that since we have this co-work on the autism spectrum, our team culture changed. Before that, everybody rushing. You know, I don't have patience. Hey, I give you could do this, do this. Right now, they know that somebody have to be slowed down. So all the team became more patient, more friendly. You know, if you don't know, I will explain to you. I write a note for you. So the whole culture, the team culture, we're on the Wall Street. The Wall Street is terribly for the aggressive, you know, greedy one there, right? So now I after many years, I'm so happy to see my company, the senior manager talking together, talking about inclusive, talking about if we hire one people on spectrum, is bring the whole company a new culture, which is more understanding, more patient, more corrective there. So that's a good way. That's the world we want to live there. We want our children to be, right? So, you know, that's what we do. That's all years, the parents, individuals, Autism Speaks, everybody. That's we come to that. Even my company only hired 5 people on the spectrum. But that's the beginning, right? That's only the beginning. So, you know, how did you understand? You know, on this detailed question, if you join AFI and we have a sharing, we can tell we can different level of the young people how we planning for their employment, right? My experience doesn't mean that apply for you because your children maybe have a higher expectation, but let's find out what is the best employment for him. We have a project in New York State. We try to looking for the employment training for the parents. The parents can learning how you find it help your children. And what I'm doing is I tell them that if you come to New York City, put the Chinese community as your pilot program because we have very good young men. We have excellent parents. Chinese is famous for hardworking, and the Chinese food is delicious. You come here, it is from the University of Kansas. I say you come here, I can treat you each day have different cuisine of Chinese food. So when you go back to Kansas, you never eat Chinese food again because it's terrible compared here, right? So that's what we try to do. You know, we try to give all the children, the young people on the spectrum have their own way of life to live and their own future. So, right? So, you know, it's already 11 o'clock.
I especially love that you said that people were learning from them. You know,
yes,
it's like really, really beautiful.
Yeah, I think that's a good word. That's really the word. We try to do that, right? So people learn to each other. Just like we learning from your experience, we learning how many things your parents are missing, did not have a chance at that time realize this is about this one. And then we learn the lesson. We not want to repeat on our children. And for Andy, they create the Autism project for the new parents. When they first diagnose it, they already know what to do. If you're looking for Autism Speaks, you can see all these programs set out for different levels, include from the first 100 days when your child is diagnosed, from inclusion, from that we call work employment inclusion now for the employer, for that we create all the tools, you know, for this one. So the world became better and better, right? Andy, right?
That's right.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it. Thank you for the last 20 years of your work there. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Yuh-Line. And I think anybody have any last question? Anything you can raise hand or open micro over there and answer. Yuh-Line, we will set up some time to have you talking to our young people here on the one, include that 17. I hope that parent can ask that 17-year-old coming. Let's see if you got all of them. Maybe it doesn't matter, right? Maybe not a big deal, right? Maybe not a big deal. Maybe you can overcome. Right?
Let me know when you set that up. I would love to hear that one too.
Okay, Andy, I got it. Thank you very much.
I want Dr. Andy to be my doctor now.
Therapist.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think that Leah has her hand up. I don't know what's
do we need to promote her to panelist, Andy?
I think we could just allow to talk, no?
Not to talk.
Okay. Yeah.
Recording stopped.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you so much.
I stopped the video and the streamline. Yeah, just so you know.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone. I'm so moved and inspired. So with all your sharing and all the encouragement. So I'm just curious, could you share some thoughts on, because Yuh-Line, you are truly inspiring. Like, I'm just curious how you develop your grit and how you learn to believe in yourself, that despite that you're anxious. I mean, that's the true definition of courage, right? Like, we do things not because we don't have fear, but despite of fear, we still do it. That's courage. So I'm trying to teach my daughter that. She's 10 years old and she has high functioning autism, anxiety, and ADHD. So she is facing a lot of the same, challenges that you may have faced at one time. She is improving and she is learning and she's very motivated to do well. At the same time, one of the things I'm trying to understand is that she has the tendency to escape from things that she thinks is hard, and I have to sort of try to expose her. At the same time, I don't know that if I'm pushing her too much. I both want to expose her, and at the same time, I'm nervous about pushing her because I do want her to develop at the right pace. So I would love to get all of your thoughts, and Feng Lao Shi, you as a parent, Yuh-Line, you have your your own experience, and Dr. Shih, you are the the scientist, the experts in this aspect. So I'd love to get your thoughts, and I'm sure some other parents have similar questions about that too.
Do you want me to go first, or should the other folks?
No, go ahead. Yes, I'd love to hear you.
So first off, I think it's really wonderful. Like, you're obviously a very supportive mom, and I think that it's really nice that you think that I'm exhibiting courage. And I think that a lot of times, when you're talking about the difficult things and the things that, your daughter might want to escape from, I don't actually have an answer, because I am the same way and I actually just escape. It doesn't get better for me. I will say that I still have, I still have those tendencies, and I don't think that I don't have an answer, because it's you're exposing her helps, and I think that you're teaching her tools and mechanisms will help to be able to make it so that certain things can be done. But for example, I have the hardest time with certain basic tasks. I'm not gonna, I will be very honest here on all of this, but I have a hard time paying bills. I have a hard time, filing things. Like, I might have the most incredible memory, but I do a lot of things by memory rather than with certain things. And when I was younger, I had a hard time telling what was real and what wasn't, when it came to, like, when I was reading something, that world was much more real than whatever was happening around me actually, and I could lose focus and I wasn't staying grounded. I now have tools to basically help me to remember what's real and what's not, like grounded, staying grounded. And now I'm much better at it, obviously. But I think that when I was younger, I had a hard time. Like, if my parents left me in a bookstore, I wouldn't even know. Like, I wouldn't even know that they left me. Like, I wouldn't have noticed for days and days probably. But I think that it's something that I want to say that things change, or I'm able to conquer some of the things that I have a really, really hard time with. But I will say this, I did choose to do things that are very frightening to me. It's true. I think that, that has to be my choice though. And there's the things that there's things that I'm still afraid of that I don't choose to, try to change. And I will say that, there are things that I will never be able to do. And I'm very much like having to acknowledge that I will never be able to do those things. And even if I am very frustrated or hurt by the fact that I will never be able to learn it or do it, I know that there's a lot of other things that I can learn to do. And I think that there are things that, so I learned how to love to learn, for another thing. I will say that out loud as well, because I think that that's really important. A lot of folks, they don't realize this, but there's a passion of learning for folks who, want to learn certain tools and learn how to do things that are difficult for them. For me, it's like I will say that I push myself, because and it's not that I learned that I have a grip, but I definitely think that I think that emotionally I learned for myself that I would be the only person that can change something for myself, and that was a realization that I had as an adult. Because when you're younger, you think that things happen to you, and then you feel very out of control. But when you're older, you can, that things happen, but that you can control how you react to them. And I don't know how to change or better say that to make it sound less daunting or out there. But I think that or cliche for that matter. But I think that it's really important to just say that because, you know, it was always a choice for me when it came to, you know, learning how to speak better, when it came to stopping my stutter, when it came to being able to communicate with people. I wanted to make friends. I was very jealous that other people seemed to have friends and I didn't have any friends. I was very jealous of that and I wanted to learn how to do that. And so I learned behaviors, like I mimicked those behaviors until I felt like they were coming more natural to me. And then, you know, over time, they were. And I think that, you know, it took a lot of patience on my part with myself. And that's something that I think parents can help with and caregivers can help with to teach, you know, to be more patient, like teach a child to be more patient with themselves. Because I used to have so much frustration on why it was so easy for my sister to do something and it was so hard for me. And then why, and I can tell my sister was also frustrated because there were so many things that she wanted to do really well, but I was, you know, naturally gifted in, not because I wanted to be, but because of my neurodiversity, you know, like I knew that she was frustrated, for example, that, you know, I wasn't an excellent pianist, you know, and she could take as many lessons as she wanted, but there wasn't anything that could change that, you know, but I was so jealous that she had friends, that my mom would let her have sleepovers and it wasn't scary for her, you know, and, you know, I was just jealous that she knew how to ride a bike and tie her shoes and like do these things that I just could not figure out, you know, that she could understand how to coordinate clothes, for example, you know, it just, so I needed to be patient with myself and then learn slowly the things that I didn't know how to do. And actually my parents were very, very good at, you know, at certain learning things. And I say that that's like very important. Even when, you know, there were things that they didn't understand that were, you know, obviously things that I wish that they had the tools, because I'm sure that if they had them, they would have done them.
And you, as a scientist and also as a father, what are your suggestions here?
Yeah, I'm sure actually you probably know more than I do, Bing. But I think I really, what Assemblywoman Niou really said, what she said really resonated in the sense that talk about her choice about these things. I think that, you know, and maybe this is partly unique to Chinese culture, right? I think the parents are really motivated to make sure that their children are well educated and that they're developing like other kids as well. I think it's wonderful to you know, to expose your kids to as many opportunities as possible. I think as parents we all try to aim to do that. But I think it's probably important to remember that, you know, even if you have a child without autism, right, he or she will have likes and dislikes. And you can do all you want to expose them to all the different things that are out there, but they will still have their likes and dislikes. And I think, you know, an opportunity for parents is really to support their children in what they like to do and what they enjoy doing, and try to build, you know, their skills and their expertise from there, and try to create opportunities from there. You know, I just think about, you know, things that I don't like to do. For example, I hated yard work when I was little, you know, doing gardening, and my parents always forced me to do it. I always hated it, right? And by insisting having me doing something like that I hate, I'm not sure whether that was actually helpful for my development. I'm not sure if it really affected my interest in science or not doing science in the future. But it's definitely cemented my hatred for yard work. So I think I think, you know, it's sometimes it's helpful to take a step back and just to appreciate, you know, what your child, you know, is interested in, is able to do, and do your best to support them, because that will make them very happy. That will make them feel like what they're doing is important and it's worthwhile. That will give them self-confidence, right? And a sense of worth, which I think at the end of the day is what's most important, you know, for our kids. So
that's why I want Dr. Shih to be my doctor.
I want to. You know, I want to see that Andy talking about the very important thing is, if your children's life is different with you, it's not that you expect. What are you going to do? As Chinese parents, we have traditionally said, 子承父业. I want my children as the best I can. I think I will give them. I want to be lawyer, doctor. Of course, it's good. Lawyer is good. Doctor is good. But maybe it's not your children just, especially for the children raised in United States, they are different with our. In the other culture, different there. They have their own way of thinking, their own way, their priority. They like things maybe totally different. So it's difficult for us is if your child behavior always like autistic child or something, what are you going to do? How are you going to accept that? How do you accept that he can live his own way of a life, you know, as long as he not bother anybody? Maybe weird, we're talking about, maybe noisy, maybe you don't understand. Maybe you think, why you didn't always do this? Can you stop it? You know, that's from parent side. That's why we call the word Autism Acceptance Month right now, right? From awareness to acceptance. You need to accept it, you know. I want my child to be the best of his life, but he can be unique, he can be different. He can be on ADHD, he can be autistic, depression, bipolar. You know, I was very touched though when one parent told me that her child may be bisexual, okay? And she said, we are ready to accept that. I said, you are the greatest parent, Chinese parent I know, because when your child is 9 years old, she's probably confusing or something. And your parent mother tells her, we are ready to accept it. Let's see how it's going there, right? So you're the great parent, you know, I really admire you. That's the one we want to do that. Of course, we're learning lots of things, try to help our children in the way, intervention, knowledge, encourage, bring them to the social one there. We try to make our children best, but not in your model, not in your think best for him. Let's talking to your children. What he want to do, what does she want to do, right? So that's as parents, we got to learning from this one here, okay? And if one thing I can talk about this one is I learning from my years, my frustration there. I learned to be patient. I learned to give my son time to development, to try, to make mistake. What I can do is I want to try to my best is when he make a big mistake, I'll be on his side. Understand why he make a mistake, explain to other people do not understand that it's not his intention, it's because this one is according to this one. I want to tell my son that, you know, if you can do next time better, people will forgive you. People will give your job back, because he was fired on the job because do something he really did not intention to do it, but it is bad, a very bad thing, right? But that's what I'm learning from many years. I said, I'm standing with you. I'm learning from your old the experience. I know why you do this wrong. It's not intentionally. I will explain to your employee there. I will defend it for you. But meanwhile, you learning from lesson. You don't do this one again, right? The people will trust you. People give this. So that's what I'm doing. I give him a learning opportunity. I also give myself a learning opportunity, so we can develop it on the way. It's not coming naturally. Before I'm still the ugly parents. My sons really hate me because I always think, oh, you need to do that You cannot do this. And we have a sharing before. Okay. Then we're learning a book by Dr. Buckley, who is the expert on ADHD. He has a book called 12 Advice to the Parents with ADHD. The number 3 is that to be a chef, not engineer. That means you cannot change your child with special needs, like an engineer. Like I give you a map, a new design, a new chip, a new computer. I totally exchange, let them become normal. There's no such a thing. But we like a shepherd. We can leading our sheep to a good nutritionally ground, let them feeding them, so let them to be sheep, right? So we can help them. We help them to grow up in their own way. So that's the thing we're learning. So when you think, okay, my children did not listen to me, thinking other way. What is best for him? What's the best way for him, right? So we got lots of learning as well. Just this is a common question every parent is thinking about. Of course, you're good parents, you can think about this, right? You will come here, listen to our story because you're a good parent. You're a really good parent. Your children is so fortunately have you. But we still need learning. We learn lots of things here. Just like Annie provides us.
Yeah.
You need to provide everybody, right?
Sure. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing, what you said. And I don't mean to monopolize the floor. So if other people need to talk, I'll shut up. But just one quick follow-up. I do think that acceptance is very important. And I do try to do my best to accept whatever the choice that she makes. So for instance, in the discussion of, when she puts her heart to piano practice, she does a beautiful job. But what I see is that she doesn't really love music. She's tolerating it okay. So the other day I was talking to her, I said, okay, look, I don't know if you really like piano. If you don't like it, we can drop it. She just says, okay, I don't know. It just comes down to the fact that it feels to me that she hasn't really found her passion. And I want to let her chart her own life. At the same time, one of my friends was telling me that she feels that she wished her mother would have forced her to study piano more when she was a child, because now that she's a grown up, she really regrets that she didn't learn to play the piano, and she would love to, but it's much harder when you're an adult. So I kind of don't want her to have that regret, but at the same time, I want her to enjoy the practice. So of course, it's a very specific question, but I'm just using that as an example. I accept whatever the choice that she chooses to enjoy and find her passion, but at the same time, how do we help them when they sort of seem like not really having found it yet? And it's just hard as a parent that I want the best for her, not that I want her to be like me, but I am sometimes left not knowing whether I should, for instance, just the piano example, to keep her on the piano, or because when I asked her if she wanted to drop it, she just didn't give me. Maybe she's afraid that if she says she wanted to drop it, I wouldn't be happy. She would feel that she would disappoint me. Maybe I need to find a better way to have a conversation. I don't know. I'm just curious.
This is a conversation actually always happen between me and the wife. My wife would think exactly like you. You just seem like her. But for me, I always tell him, let your daughter decide. Don't bother. I don't want to bother my daughter. She can make a decision here. It's good decision, bad decision. That's her own decision. So yeah, this is always even yesterday. My wife still said, "Hey, why you did not worry about your daughter's anything? She cannot find out the room for next semester." I think she's smart. She can do herself. I don't need to do this. So it's always, don't worry about it. This is very natural for a mother. This is a common. That means you're a good mother. That's nothing else. So it really you can have your daughter will figure it out the best way, and and maybe you can talk to her father, maybe have different ideas. That's always, well, that's a good family. That's how the good family doing this one, right? Yeah, I think I have 3 other people raise hand. Who is?
Yeah, there was somebody who has their son wants to ask a question, and then there was another person who has their hand raised as well. But I also think that it goes back to Dr. Shih's main point when we're talking about Leah's question about, I think, you answered it earlier a little bit. I think that, what you said was really, really profound on that point. I will say that for my own side of things, my parents had me play piano for a very long time. Because I mean, I know I was like, when you're a kid and you're a prodigy or whatever, it's like, they want you to keep playing, but they were very surprised when I was younger. My sister, actually, she told me, she was like, I wish that you would just quit. And I was like, okay. My mom and dad were just like, would you quit? And like, or like my mom and dad were really surprised because I just said, I want to quit. And they were just like, what? And they never knew that my sister was the one who asked me to quit. And I think that I don't have any regrets because that wasn't the thing that I wasn't going to be a professional pianist. What I wanted was to, I wanted to learn to speak for myself and to learn to advocate for others, and I think that was something that was more something that I'm passionate about. And I think that when I joined the debate team in high school, I think my mom realized that, oh, I have fight in me because I really, even though I could write other people's arguments, I could never deliver them myself. I enjoyed it. And I ended up being the president of my debate club, even though I never won a competition because I was so nervous and I couldn't say anything, even though I wrote all of the winning arguments for everybody else. And I think that it's really, it was really about, what I was really passionate about. And even if I'm really, really good at something, it didn't matter. And I think that, yes, of course, she's probably nervous more about, I will say that I was very nervous about what my parents thought. And
I was wondering because this is the host wanted you to unmute. So should I click unmute?
You're already on mute, so you can talk about it.
You're speaking.
Miss Representative, my mom said that, like, since I have autism, I'm on the spectrum myself. My mom said that, like, there's maybe what is it called? An opportunity to volunteer. So I was wondering, like, how do I volunteer, or if I can?
Oh, I would love.
I'm typing the website for there. Okay, it's New for New York.
Yeah, I would love for you to volunteer. Where do you live?
Well, I live in California.
Oh, that's a lot harder, but I because I'm in New York, but I would love for you to make calls for me if you would like. But I think that, we could definitely chat online. I have an email address that I already shared into the chat. So you can email me and we can see what we can do, okay?
Got it. Well, thank you. And by the way, it might be a while since I email you, since I don't have my laptop on me right now. But once I get back to school, I'll just email you.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your support. I'm sorry we are traveling now and for the spring break, and my son is very high function, and I actually have the question, so that in the high school, and so how do you survive? Because now that my son for this year and already have that 7 days for that suspension, right? And he has some behavior, and always have some kids reports to the principal. And so, but for me, sometimes I think that's acceptable, but I still understand that the other kids are also very young, and sometimes they cannot really know people very well. And so
I suspensions, and I hate suspensions, period. I think that they should end that practice. It's a terrible practice in school. I was almost suspended actually in elementary school for reading. My mom was so upset. She went to the principal and she yelled at them. She was like, don't you want your kids to learn? Isn't this the whole point of school? And she was my biggest advocate for that. And she made the school take it back. But I was almost suspended for 10 days, actually. And then they made a rule that where I couldn't even borrow books. I didn't see any other kids having to have that rule, but I couldn't borrow books until Friday after school. I had to return them before Monday, before school started. It was a terrible, terrible thing that they did to me. And my mom was so angry, and she ended up taking me to the library, bought me everything I wanted on books and stuff. It was actually something that, and in the end, I felt like, you know, having a parent that was supportive of me in that moment was the most important thing. But, you know, I love that, you know, you're upset for your son on that level, but you're also accepting. And I think that that's a really big deal. So I think that it's more about your response than the school's response.
Yeah, I accept that he's different when he was very young. So always trying my best and to help him. And I realized, just like you said at first, and for that, you know, accept that very important, right? And I also, you know, tell the school, and so that he has this problem, and I show them so many, you know, reports when he was young, we did. And for OT, for autism, for everything, for that, the eye problem, so many things. So yeah, I think that's very important. So then that you can ask that school to give that the, you know, support, especially. And you said that you get this and test, and when you are almost in 20, right? Yeah, my son did that very young. So I think that's very helpful. And also to let him know that he's different from other kids and accept that he's different. Yeah, my son is very interested in politicals. And he did, you know, speech. And yeah, so that's why. And my sister, not my sister, my daughter, also now, you know, apply some, you know, summer intern for some, you know, Congress representative, just because she said that my brother want to do that. So that she said, if I know some people, so maybe can give my brother some.
That's so nice.
Yes, yeah, I know that my daughter is very nice. So now that's why I asked my son to ask you directly, even we live in California, and she can also do some things for you. And I hope that he can learn and be proud of himself. And yeah, because that's his interest. Thank you very much.
I think Dr. Andy Shih had something he wanted to add.
No, I just want to say right on. That's terrific, actually.
One thing I can add is that if the parents want to join the advocacy, okay, all the siblings, all the young people, there are a great program from Autism Speaks called Autism Speaks Volunteer Advocacy Ambassadors. Unfortunately, I'm one of them. What we do is we come from all the country, all background, most of parents, the other individuals on the autism speeches, spectrum, professional teachers all together. What we do is we're learning how to lobby your congressman or senator. So we have a meeting each month. We learn what's the important issue currently discussed in Congress, and we contact them. Through that, this is one of my biggest learning experience. My happy moment is because you see all the people, different background, from different, coming for the common goal, one goal. That's autism. How make the world better? So this is a great. Unfortunately, right now we have like 400, 500, all the country. I only see 2 people with a Chinese last name. So I know only 2 people from the Chinese background have this one. We need more. We need more. It's a learning experience. It doesn't matter your English good or not. You just speak your story. You just speak as one of the member from Chinese America. You can tell your children's story, your sibling's story.
Oh, and sorry, I have another question. And you know that my son doesn't like me and to talk with his friends and say that he needs help and needs support, and to let some, you know, other people can accept him better because he's a new person and for California for the high school. And so I don't know whether that other kids or that when you were young also have this feeling and you don't want that other people to know that you have this autism. And because my son, you know, refused me to for her birthday party, and he said, they think that he doesn't want me and to tell with other kids. He is very unhappy about that, and he was angry when I talked to my neighbor. And once my son and borrowed that socks from the neighbor and returned that socks back and never washed that. So that when I finally met that neighbor and I said, oh, I'm very sorry, maybe one day I want to talk to you and to, learn much better about my son. My son was so angry and refused to tell me where she lives. So I respect him so that I don't, try to find that neighbor. But I think that for him, so he doesn't want the other people to know about that. And maybe that especially for the high function autism kid. So
high function have, on the spectrum, if you're high function, you higher challenge. If you have this one, because that's need more. One thing Andy, is that right now the CST only targeted for young children, right? We don't have the puberty and the more one there, right? But this also should be in the package. How you tell your caregiver talking about the grow up one, right? So this is one thing in the future, maybe.
Yeah. So first of all, there are. Oh, sorry.
No, I just was saying that people forget about us once we're grown.
Exactly. Yeah. That's actually a terrible thing. You're absolutely right. So our work with the WHO and the CST is really the first step, right? So we are actually actively planning the second phase, which are going to be for teens, and we're going to do develop the intervention for teens a little differently. We're actually going to, just like we collaborate with the caregivers to develop the CST, we actually collaborate with teenagers and young people and develop the intervention that are most useful for them, right? So we're on it, and hopefully in a few years we'll be able to share a prototype with everybody, and obviously the aspiration is that eventually we'll be able to make a similar package available to the global community as well.
And I also wanted to just mention that, just addressing his friend issue, the fact that he has friends, I think is really amazing, and that he's already, he's handling it. I think that it's really about, his friends probably can already tell that he has some different needs. And I think that that's already them understanding, that he's worth being friends with, right? And I think that that's really powerful, and you should, you should be proud of him. And it's really, it's I don't think that, I wouldn't want my parents to talk about, what I needed if my friends already kind of knew, and if I was going to have those conversations with my friends too. I think that it is really great for you to advocate for your son on all levels, I will say. I think it's really awesome, but it's a learning thing for both of you. I think that, communicating with him and asking him first probably is also helpful, and just seeing, what would make him feel more comfortable, or what would be helpful, and like, how would you feel, like, how would he feel if you were to ask, or say something about certain things. And I think that in itself is like also empowering for him and gives him confidence. And I think that for me, I don't know, maybe Dr. Andy can answer better, because I don't have all the answers for this, but I definitely know what it feels like to, my sister was very protective, I will say, and really on social levels. I think it's awesome that his sister is. My sister, she, obviously as a little kid, and she was younger than me, so as a little kid, she was willing to tie our bikes together, because I didn't know how to ride one, to like, even though it's more dangerous, I don't know what she was thinking, but she was willing to give me the confidence to ride a bike, because she knew that I was never going to try to learn it on my own, and I didn't know how to break it down. I didn't know how to think about it in the way that would help me to get on one, but she was willing to like be the push that I needed to like try to get on one, and I think that she wasn't willing to tell anybody else, you know, and that, you know, I needed help, and she never told anyone else that she's the one that helped me, you know, because, you know, she was like always like, you know, it might be embarrassing that she's younger, and like, you know, and so like she was just very considerate, and I think that that's the part that's like, you know, nice. It's like a thing where it's a relationship, you know. I think like if you were your son's best friend, you're definitely going to be like, let me, you know, keep your confidence and then help you in the little ways that will make it so that you can choose what you want out of each of these relationships. So I don't know, that's just my personal opinion, but I think that things will be different for a lot of people.
Yeah, thank you all.
So next time we're asking Yuh-Line coming to the young people, your son can help us organize.
Yeah, that would
you
be
can help us.
That would be nice.
Yeah, that's great. You contact us, you will become a part of organizer. You also can share your own experience. That's great, you know.
What's his name? Can you tell us his name?
His name is Kenny Zhou.
Kenny. Okay.
Yeah, Kenny. Yeah, he gave himself their name.
We want you, Kenny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. Today is so, you know, for me, it's learning. I learned so many from Yuh-Line, you know, and of course, Andy. Really appreciate. Thank you very much. And we definitely will continue the conversation. It was so important. We, as parents, we're learning from professional, from individual, every family there, and you know, that's working together. So, final happy Autism Day. We will finally see happy one, right? So, thank you everybody. Stick with us, and thank you Andy and Yuh-Line. And of course, Grace, appreciate. So thank you everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Yuh-Line. Thank you, Andy and Bing. I know you guys prepared for this over a month, and it's very late, and especially Yuh-Line probably go back to work again, say like that. Yeah. So I'm gonna end here, and everyone, if you didn't join, why don't you guys can quit? I'm just sharing that code again so that people can join our community. But good night. Bing, good night. Yeah, you guys can leave, and I just share the community.
Yeah. So last thing, if you're not in our group, is our month of the April 我们4月份呢有一套的这个节目，我们依照我们的传统，就是礼拜六是